Have you ever felt like you just sort of weren't enough to make the career change or develop that business or whatever life change you might be interested in? Have you ever felt low self-esteem, a lack of confidence in yourself, trust in yourself? I really want to address this because this is a fundamental reason why people don't live out their dreams. So today we're going to have a great show talking about how you can master self-empowerment. And I have a fabulous guest to help walk us through this.
Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Money and You show. And today we're going to begin with a great conversation on confidence. And I'm going to have that conversation with a fabulous woman named Beverly Price. She is the host and founder of Her Self-Expression podcast and transformational coach to provide knowledge, support, and insight to help women on their journey to self-empowerment so they can take on the world. She's the founder of Nastava Jewelry, where her custom creations reflect the journey of self-empowerment, self-expression, and beauty. With an MBA and a background as a leader in the financial services industry, Beverly comes from a background of making herself small in order to make others feel safe. Well, in the corporate world, she didn't even accessorize her attire, but instead focused on fitting into a man's world. When she finally embraced her ability to own her power and make a statement, she went from self-loathing to self-love. Her transformation was apparent in both her exterior appearance and in her internal confidence. This is the transformation that Beverly supports her clients in creating. For over 25 years, she's guided and coached and done strategy sessions for women where she's delivered the proven steps to guide them on their total journey while providing industry-renowned resources to help them achieve their goals. And she's not creating a new business, coaching or podcasting, or designing and creating statement jewelry. Beverly enjoys living by the beach in South Carolina with her family and 4 dogs. Beverly, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And it was a bit of short notice, and so I'm honored that you're able to be here. I'm so impressed after speaking with you of what you're doing and how you came to do this work. Do you want to let people know a little about how you got to this point and also how you moved from financial services industry to jewelry designer?
Sure. Well, let's see. Where do I start? I was just raised in an environment where I had everything materially and money wasn't an issue, but there wasn't the nurturing of self-esteem and self-worth and self-confidence. And so I grew up both personally and professionally feeling less than, not feeling like I had a lot to offer, not feeling worthy. And yet I had this persona on the outside that would make you think I had it all together and that I was confident and that I was happy, and nobody really knew what was going on inside of me. Nowadays, they call it imposter syndrome, but back then we didn't have a name for it. So I began my professional career as a corporate executive in banking. And when I started, which is long time ago, they handed out this little book called Dress for Success. And the idea was you dressed like a man, except you had a skirt. And something funny is you couldn't even wear pants unless it was 32 degrees outside or colder. I thought that was hysterically funny. And my daughters can't believe it. But I left banking, went to an insurance agency went to an advertising agency and saw how color and style just can totally transform you. And went to a fashion stylist who showed me about things like jewelry and accessories. So I kind of did a physical transformation. And what I found was when I transformed on the outside, I felt better on the inside. Still didn't get rid of the issues I had, but it made me feel a little bit better. And I came back to corporate, this time in insurance, and always did something creative on the side. As a leader, you don't really see tangible outcomes. And so it was suggested to me you had a hobby where you could see something tangible. So I took my daughters to a jewelry shop and gave them a gift certificate, and they thought it was fun. And I fell in love and became obsessed and, just began making very big, bold statement jewelry. And at the time, the environment that I worked on was extremely toxic. So it wasn't too hard to want to leave, but it was scary to leave. And I had originally made a plan to stay 2 more years until my girls were in college. But something happened, and it was just this inside voice that says it's time. And I had a couple of girls give me a nudge telling me that I ought to sell my jewelry. So I left and started selling my jewelry full time. And that's how I came to be in jewelry.
Wow. That's a big move. That's a bold move.
Yes.
I love that. And I'm sure people listening are thinking, oh my gosh, I love jewelry. I would love to be able to do that. But, part of it would be a money conversation.
Oh, yeah. Very big one.
That shift where you're losing a pretty substantial paycheck and you're going into the roller coaster that can be entrepreneurship. And you're unsure. You don't know if this is going to really work. I mean, you have your vision and you have your intentions, but so how did you navigate that?
Well, on top of it all, I was a single mother. So I didn't have a backup system to help me, but I had saved quite a bit of money over time. I had some retirement savings as well. And so I was able to support the habit, as I say, for a while. And then my elderly parents became ill. And I put that jewelry business on hold to take care of them and did until they passed. And then my husband and I decided to make the move to the beach. He wanted to move to the beach and I wanted to build a custom home. So we both got our wish. And I got nudges again from girls that said, you ought to restart your business. And I thought I could, but I want it to be different. I want it to be 100% online because we'd come through, it was right in the middle of COVID. And the other thing is I want it to be more than just jewelry. I'm more than just a product. I wanted it to be something that empowered women, something that let them express, something that brought out their inner beauty. Mm-hmm. Because I believed if you can make a woman feel better on the outside, it helps her feel better on the inside. So that's how I re-rolled out the jewelry business, if you will. Mm-hmm. The first time it didn't do well financially. So I had to come to accept that. And I had to learn that and I hesitate to say whether it was a failure or not. It was a failure financially, but everything I've learned about entrepreneurship means that every failure is really a stepping stone and a learning experience.
Right.
So, but I think that there was a big lesson for me that there's a difference in having a business that fails and feeling like you're a failure as a person. Big, big difference.
That's such a great point. There were so many interesting things in what you just said. For one thing, I think sometimes we get caught up in that I'm a product business or I'm a service business. And I think that's always a thing to look at. If you have a product, is there a service that you can also offer that you're, related or you're skilled at, and vice versa? If you have a service, is there also a product that you could create? And I love that broadening of, thinking about your business. And yeah, well, you also brought up the fact that you had savings. So that gives you, as we know, but don't always practice, that gives you a sense of freedom that you can do things like this that nothing else really does. So whatever form that takes, it's crucial to be building that in one way or another.
Yeah, you have to be careful though, because, like I said, there are a lot of small businesses that don't make it. And COVID was a very difficult time for a lot of people. So you have to have the staying power. And also, I think you have to have a little bit of almost a foolish courage that keeps you going when sometimes it says, oh, it would be real easy to give up right now. Yeah. But I know this can work. I've done my planning. I've looked at my marketing. I've looked at my business plan, and this can work. It just may not be on my timetable.
Right. Excellent point too. Sometimes we do those plans and by this date, this is supposed to happen. And when it doesn't, do you stop? Do you consider it a failure? Do you quit? Or do you keep pushing forward and create a new timeline?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great stuff here. This is, I love the attitude you have. I mean, of course you could have gone back into banking, but was that ever something that you considered, or did you jump ship and just never to look back at that?
Jump ship and never to return for a lot of different reasons. I think that once I experienced the other side that allowed me to be freely creative, there unleashed something in me that I wouldn't be happy going back. Now, obviously, if something had happened financially, I'm a responsible person. If I had to, I would. And for a good while in my life, I considered my corporate job something that I had to do to support my children as a single mom. And so it may not be what I want to do and what I like to do, but it was necessary to do. And so that was what I call the responsibility phase of my life. And this is now a little more the fun phase of my life and the creative phase. But I unfortunately, the last place I worked was pretty toxic. And so I really got a bad taste of corporate America from that. Because not only was it toxic, but when it was known that it was toxic, there still was nothing done about it. Right.
That's a pretty bad position to be part of. There's not a lot of hope there. So, okay. So you sound like such a confident woman. So together, so self-expressed. So why don't you tell us a little about your journey so people aren't looking at you going, well, Beverly can do that, but how would I do that? I don't feel like I have the confidence.
Oh, wow. Well, see, that's what I meant about, it comes naturally. I guess I have this ability to look one way, even though I feel a different way. And I have really struggled in my life. I've had failed marriages. I've been in abusive relationships. I've lost jobs. I've been through life's ringer. And a lot of it came out of or resulted in low self-esteem, low self-worth, a feeling like I was a failure. And I had to get to the point where I just became disgusted with how afraid I was and how down on myself I was and how I talked to myself. Mm-hmm. Because I've never really grown when life's hunky-dory. Mm-hmm. Usually I have to be in a good bit of pain to grow. And so I got in quite a bit of pain and decided that the only thing I could do was change myself, that it wasn't anybody else's fault, that I needed to change me. And so I did quite a bit of work with a coach. I did a lot of work on myself. I did things like practiced affirmations, did gratitude lists, turned to faith, all of those kinds of things, and was able to do a transformation that I would say comes close to 180 degrees. Mm-hmm. As I tell my husband of 6 years, he wouldn't have liked me if he knew me back then.
Wow. Well, you're definitely speaking my language here. I think the keys, are the self-awareness, are the personal growth that you force on yourself, partly because you are in pain. So it can be a gift in hindsight. It is where you grow. We do not grow that much from the successes. We sort of
right.
enjoy them for a second and then we move on to like the next goal.
The next one.
Yeah. But so that's beautifully said. And I hope people are hearing. Did you spend any time in kind of the blame and, all the stuff that we tend to that's kind of where we go initially sometimes when we're in pain and we can waste.
Oh, I wallered in it. I used to name periods of my life based on who did me wrong. This was because of my parents. This was because of this boss. This was because of this husband. And again, I had to come to realize that I had developed this victim mentality. And that's not to say anything about true victims of domestic abuse and things like that. I'm talking about a mentality that takes over your identity, that it's everybody else's fault but mine. And as long as I feel that way, I don't have to do anything about me. But if I finally grasp that I'm the common denominator in all these situations, then there's a chance for me to get motivated and do the work.
Right. And it's so important. If there are, if you do have big dreams in your life, this is a key component. I'm a big believer that you must understand money and your relationship with money, but you also have to be able to build that confidence to put yourself out there. And I'm sure that was scary, especially when you're doing something creative like jewelry design. It's a scary thing to put something out there and know that people are going to comment or criticize or have opinions about it. Yeah.
And just because I may look together doesn't mean I've arrived at some super confident mountaintop. It's a continuous journey for me. And one of the things I learned that I think we talked about last time was about being an entrepreneur, that your emotions roller coaster with your revenue. And even more so with your profit. So, nobody told me that. It wasn't something they taught in business school. And so every time I had a down month, which, if you think about it, retail, most of the retailers make their money in fourth quarter, but summers was really rough. So I would find myself in this really depressed kind of valley, if you will, that I had to be real careful. I didn't let myself drop too low. And then when it would come out and it'd be around Christmas time, I would be riding high. And what I've learned is I need to get more in the center, and my emotions need to be more stable to make effective decisions and to conduct the business appropriately.
Yeah, which is no small feat. I mean, what do you tell people who are like, my feelings are my feelings. I can't control them? Because we do get to a point of self-development where we recognize that emotions are controllable, our reactions are controllable. But to a lot of people, that's a bit of a mystery, before, if they haven't done a lot of work on this. So let's start with that.
Yeah. And I think that, I believe wholeheartedly in using a coach. You think about it this way: if we will spend money to hire a coach for football teams, why wouldn't I spend money to hire it to have a better life? Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the reasons that coaching is so important to me. The other thing is, once I decided that I wanted to make life more than just jewelry, I'd also been doing coaching of women on the side and doing transformational coaching. And I've now done it for about 25 years. But I believe that something had to be done. There's some statistics out there that are just horrifying. One says that 4 out of every 5 professional women think they are less than other women. And 1 in 2 women feel more self-doubt than self-love. And those are just tragic to me. Less than 3% of women feel they're beautiful. And all of that adds up to, we have to do something. And so one of the things I did was to create an organization called Her Self-Expression that helps women on their journey from self-expression to self-empowerment on the inside and out. And it's composed of my coaching practice, a podcast that I run, and a group I formed called the Her Self-Expression Sisterhood, which provides support to other women who are on this journey.
And when you say this journey, how would you define this journey for people listening?
I would define it as moving from a place of self-doubt and insecurity and a lack of confidence to a place where you feel comfortable in your own skin, you're feeling comfortable being the authentic you, and to have confidence and feel like you have power.
Beautiful. It's interesting because, we both have our MBAs. We both were in financial, services industries. It's interesting how they never talk about this stuff. I loved where you brought up the emotions around your revenue.
Yeah.
There was never any talk at all about emotions in business. So it's as if you had an idea, you figured out the market, you did all the business planning things, and you just went forth, and that was the key to success. And it was missing really the biggest component of the whole thing, including your own confidence and your mindset around, what you were doing. And this idea that, your emotions can't drive your decision making. And
heaven forbid if you mention that to your male professor.
I know. I still, to this day, I bring up with my clients, feelings and emotional, things that come up. And it's so interesting because a lot of them will say, well, this feels more like therapy than business coaching, but it's so intertwined. And
yes.
I don't know. I just find it. I mean, they recognize that the value of it, but in the first instance, it's like, why are we talking about feelings? That's not part of business, but of course it is.
Well, I think what a lot of people don't understand is that there's this core deep down inside, and it has to be satisfied and nurtured, and it has to become whole before you can truly be successful in both on the inside and out. You can be successful on the outside, and that's where you have that imposter syndrome where somebody looks good on the outside and not on the inside. So you need a whole core to be able to really get to that place. Yeah.
And the imposter syndrome is so interesting. I loved what you said about, earlier, didn't actually have a name. We didn't really talk about it, but we talk about it all the time now. And I was just at a 2-day Wealthy Women Summit last week. Amazing speakers, really different, unique ways of thinking about money. Every single one talked about their own version of the imposter syndrome. So it's out there. We can't wait. Like you were saying, you don't want to, the journey's not going to be over. So you can't wait to start these things or, start living your dream, until you've overcome your own imposter syndrome. Is there a point at which you feel, you can cross over into that journey, or do you just go for it from the start and work on this simultaneously? What would you recommend?
Well, I think it is a journey, number one. I don't think you ever arrive. I think it's a journey, not a destination. I think that it's always, if I had to look back and say, what would I advise myself when I was younger? I would do both at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I would try to hold on to this mantra: believe in yourself no matter what anybody says. Mm-hmm. And then I would try and have a coach that I could turn to help me be more objective about my life than I could, and tell me things I might not want to hear that I need for growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so interesting. I do journaling every morning, and there's a quote at the bottom of each page of my journal. And what you just said was almost the exact quote on today's page, which is really interesting. No matter what anybody else thinks, you have to just believe in yourself. And it's tough in today's world. I mean, the social media and everything out there has made it easier than ever to compare ourselves and feel insecure and everything else. So do you have any advice on that?
Wow. Aside from turning it off, it is really tough. And what it's doing to our younger generation is just terrible. Mm. one of the things that some of the studies have suggested is that we grow in confidence as we get older as women. But the 20 and 30-year-old generations are extremely vulnerable. And so I think that that it behooves us to reach out to women behind us, younger than us, and help them. When I started in corporate America, it was a dog eat dog, women clawing their way to the top. Heaven forbid you helped anybody. You know, you were really pushing them out of the way. And having come through my life, I feel that it's time to give back, to really help other women on their journey. And my hope is it doesn't take them as long as it took me to come to some of these realizations.
Oh my gosh, I so feel that, because I have a 20-something-year-old daughter and I'm in my 60s. And so, the best part to me of growing older has been the confidence that you finally develop, and it just doesn't just happen because of age. It happens because you've had this lifetime of experiences. And in my case, in your case, we do the work and, to build that too, and to love ourselves a lot more than maybe we did in our earlier days. And, but there's a huge problem, like you said, for younger people. And it's a serious problem. It's not a joke. They're growing up with something different than imposter syndrome. I mean, it's so much bigger than that. And, so, I think turning it off too is a brilliant idea as much as possible. Obviously, we have to live in the world, and so some of it is necessary. I
think one of the most harmful things that we have as humans is comparing ourselves to others. And when I compare myself to somebody else, I'm always comparing my insides to their outsides. And I'm always going to come up short, because I'm going to feel less than inside. And I think social media and media in general just foster this comparison methodology and mentality, and really create this setup for no self-esteem. Because if you are comparing, you're going to come up short.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree that we have to help, the younger girls particularly. But I almost feel like as they age into their maybe 30s, they'll realize, and they're starting to, they kind of know it anyway, the damage that it's doing. Hopefully they'll mentor the people, younger than them.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think we're pretty selfish in that we're concerned with our own progress and our own success. And it's not until we've achieved it that we can then kind of relax and say, okay, now I can take time for that. Because otherwise I'm just so busy, I don't have time for it. When I was a single working mom, I remember I used to tell my girls that they couldn't do any activities except on the weekend because I worked during the day. They couldn't play a sport, that you had to do something on the weeknight. And so I was just so busy that dedicated to them and other things that I didn't have time for other women. I didn't have time to make friends or have a support system. And I really didn't have time to help other women. And that's such a shame.
It's a shame. And as I'm listening to you, I was the same, but I realized that that's exactly what we should have been doing, because that just makes an enormous difference in our lives.
But you live and learn. We learn something when we're meant to learn it. And so now hopefully we share this message and some others will pick up on it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. So tell us about, I was at this conference. I go to a lot of things where women are supporting women, and the feeling that you get from that, the energy you get from that, not just the connections and the, potential business, but my gosh, I left those 2 days just feeling so energized and just recognizing as great as Zoom is, there's nothing like actually being physically with a group of people.
Right.
But either way, we need people. And you and I grew up in that generation where we thought we needed to do it alone. That was the ticket to success. And I think young people too, they need to gather and support each other. And I don't know if that's happening as much as, but anybody listening, no matter how busy you are, I feel like if you can find one group, a group like yours, where you can spend a little time each week, it is dramatic, the pick me up and the inspiration and just help and support and mentorship you can get.
Yeah, I think the real key is when you leave those or after you make those connections, are you taking it a step forward? Mm-hmm. One of the issues I used to have with trainings when I went to is I would learn all these great new things. I'd get back to work and do it the same as I always did.
Yeah, which is a great point. So, I'd love for you to just speak on how habitual we are, because having low self-esteem is also a habit. Thinking of ourselves is also a habit. So how do we break our patterns of just, we're wired to kind of do the same things, whether they're good for us or not?
Well, I think there's a number of things you can do, but it's going to take a conscious effort. And you first, before any change, you're going to have to become willing to make that change and recognize that, that change is needed. But once you do that, there's things as simple as changing your routine. Mm-hmm. For a professional woman, putting it on your calendar, something like call one woman and network with her or ask her how she's doing. Mm-hmm. Call 2 women that day and ask them how you're doing. I have a planner that I created where I have things that are recurring that I do every week on each day. And so on that is make a call, mm-hmm. help another woman, those kinds of things. Then I think for things that are much more deeply ingrained, there are other scientific methods. There's a method called EFT, mm-hmm. and there's a method called NLP that help literally change how you feel. NLP with your brain transmission and EFT with tapping like acupuncture and acupressure. Mm-hmm. And so if you have things that you just can't seem to be able to get rid of in everyday life, you can turn to experts and assuming the whole way that you're working with a coach to help you through that process. And for deeper things, let's say that go back to your childhood, I would definitely, and I'm very positive about therapy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think in those cases that it's needed that as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we align on these things. I agree. I love EFT. And a lot of these things you can try. You have to keep an open mind because most people aren't.
Well, that's key. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're different. And, therapy is more mainstream, but the other things work differently for different people, but sometimes very effectively for people. And
yes.
And there's so many methodologies out there, and starting to open yourself up to finding them. If you're just not feeling good, there are ways to feel so much better. And if you take a tiny start, you start building momentum, it feels good. You want more, and then you discover more modalities. And yeah, it's kind of a fascinating journey. I love my personal development journey. I think it's, and it was born out of, a painful period, but I kind of thank God for that because I am a different person and have so many different skills from that.
Yeah, I think that that's the key. I think when you become willing, when you're given that gift of willingness, you can, in fact, change.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, this is available to people before they're in a crisis or in pain. So, that's the ideal, I think, for people to discover these things before they need them. And then they have, a wealth of information. Maybe that's not realistic. I don't know.
No, I think it's very realistic. I think that's one of the reasons that I'm hoping by sharing my story, that it tells women that it's okay to come forward, that it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's nothing to feel bad about, but come join us. Come join us on that journey and come to the other side where you can see a life that's so much more fulfilling than the one you have now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And so maybe just a couple of simple tips for people who just need to improve their confidence, just enough to move forward a little bit.
Sure. Well, the one thing I mentioned earlier, and I believe this becomes a mantra: believe in yourself no matter what anybody says, believe in yourself no matter what. I think that's number one. I think the second one is find a support system, find a networking group, find a group of friends, find any people that are going through what you're going through or have gone through what you are, that you can relate to and that you can talk to. I think one of the things that can be dangerous is when you get the feeling that you're the only one that has this problem. And believe me, you are not the only one that has this problem.
Right.
So I think that's truly the case. And the third is find someone to help you on this journey. Find a coach, find somebody that you trust that can help you move along and show you the way so that you don't have to take the time and hit the bumps in the road that trying to do it by yourself will yield. Find somebody that has been where you are and can take you on that journey.
Love that. And, this is really an act of receiving to do this. And I just heard a speaker about talking about receiving and the importance for women to receive and how little we do it and how good we are at giving and how terrible we are at receiving. And if you can just receive this opportunity, it'll make a huge difference. And receiving is what allows you to actually be creative, was her point. And I thought that was brilliant. Like, we can't be creative in our lives and create things. We're born creators as women, but giving it all away and not taking time to receive, we don't do it. So, yeah. Well, Beverly, thank you so much. I also love
you.
Voice. So I think listening to your podcast is very calming. And I think you need that when you're in an area, not feeling so great about yourself. So
thank you.
Find you and
get I know, and you're going to be my guest. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you so much for that. So
how do they find me? Herselfexpression.com is the website. Her Self-Expression podcast is anywhere you listen to podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And my coaching practice is on herselfexpression.com. And if you like jewelry, it's nastavajewelry.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And for you listeners, thank you for being here. We love having you. So please subscribe and leave a review for the Money and You podcast. That helps us to keep going and invite wonderful guests like Beverly. And also, I want you to think about what steps can you take to find more confidence today, because this is something that everybody can work on. Everybody can actually make great progress with this. So start today. Even if you don't know if that's your issue, try it and see if that helps you to move forward. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.